So everybody knows that pugs and French bulldogs have breathing problems. But what if I told you this new study found that's only part of the story? Researchers evaluated nearly 900 dogs across 14 brachycephalic breeds, and the results challenge what we've been assuming for years. So what is BOAS? BOAS is the brachycephalic obstructive airway syndrome, and it's not just snoring. This is a progressive disease where multiple anatomical abnormalities make it increasingly difficult for a dog to move air. As the airflow becomes restricted, the dog has to generate greater negative pressure with every breath, and that increased suction doesn't just make breathing noisy, it actually pulls soft tissues deeper into the airway, causing swelling and worsening the obstruction over time. And eventually, these changes lead to exercise intolerance and heat intolerance and sleep disturbances and cyanosis and collapse and even life-threatening respiratory crisis. So this study really matters because the previous BOAS research focused almost entirely on just pugs, French bulldogs, and English bulldogs. This study really expanded that into the 900 dogs representing 14 different breeds. They even included Bostons and Boxers and Cavalier King Charles Spaniels and Chihuahuas and Shih Tzus and Pekingese and the Japanese Chin and even Bullies. That makes this one of the broadest investigations of BOAS ever performed. They didn't just ask pet owners questions. Every dog underwent an objective respiratory function grading examination. So dogs were actually evaluated before exercise, after a standardized 3-minute exercise test, and veterinarians listened to Sturder, Strider, respiratory distress, and exercise intolerance. Grade 0 meant normal. Grades 2 and 3 represented clinically significant BOAS. The biggest surprise here, not every flat-faced breed had the same risk. The highest risk breeds weren't necessarily the most popular ones. The worst performers in the study were actually the Pekingese and the Japanese Chin. Only around 11% of Pekingese and 17% of Japanese Chins were completely free of respiratory abnormalities. Meanwhile, breeds like the Boxers and Chihuahua and Cavalier King Charles Spaniels and the Bullies and the Pomeranians had substantially lower rates of clinically significant disease. So what predicts this BOAS? Researchers analyzed numerous body measurements, and after statistical modeling, 3 variables consistently stand out. Number 1, nostril stenosis. Dogs with moderately narrowed nostrils are approximately 4 times more likely to develop BOAS. And dogs that had those stenotic nostrils had almost 10 times the higher odds. So think about the physics. Your dog's trying to breathe through these teeny little openings, and that dramatically increases resistance before air even reaches the throat. Number 2 on the list, body condition score. Overweight dogs had approximately 1.8 times greater odds of BOAS. Why? That extra fat isn't just under the skin. It accumulates around the neck and the chest and the upper airway. That makes an already narrow airway even smaller. It also increases the work of breathing and raises oxygen demand. So for brachycephalic dogs, keeping them lean isn't cosmetic. It's a medical treatment. Number 3, what's known as the craniofacial ratio. This is the ratio between the muzzle length and the skull length. The smaller that ratio, the flatter the face, and the greater the BOAS risk. But here's the fascinating part. The relationship wasn't perfect. Some extremely flat-faced breeds still perform much better than expected. And this suggests that genetics and soft tissue anatomy and breed-specific airway structure matter in addition to skull shape. Here's an important lesson from the study. The statistical model explained only about 20% of the variation in BOAS. That means 80% of what determines whether a dog develops BOAS remains unexplained by these 3 measurements alone. There's much more involved than simply saying flat face equals breathing problems. It's a major oversimplification. What does this mean for breeders? The authors argue against using one universal strategy. Instead, they recommend breed-specific selection programs because different breeds appear to develop BOAS for different anatomical reasons. And that's a much more sophisticated approach than simply breeding for a slightly longer muscle. Practical advice for owners: if you own a brachycephalic dog, keep them lean, watch for noisy breathing, monitor exercise intolerance, avoid overheating, and ask your veterinarian to evaluate nostril size and airway function, not just whether your dog snores. Because snoring isn't normal. It's often an early sign of airway obstruction. So this study really shows that BOAS isn't simply a cosmetic issue. It's a complex disease influenced by anatomy and body condition and breed-specific genetics. And while we can't change your dog's DNA, keeping them at an ideal body weight may be one of the most powerful things you can do to help them breathe easier. Follow me for amazing facts about dogs.